Alright guys, I'm gonna show you how to add a ring. So this is one method, and I know about maybe 10 different methods of doing this. But this is like the cleanest way and very consistent way of doing it. So now what we have here, this is laminated wood. I got two pieces glued to each other. It's a oak barrel, a whiskey barrel or cognac barrel or whatever from Helsinki Distilling Company. They gave it to me. I machined both sides and I put polyurethane glue, super strong stuff in between the two. And now to add strength, we put a ring at the front, like this, and right there. So I've marked where I want it to be, and just gonna make my way down. As you see, it's oval. So you need one custom tool for this. And that's just a regular old hardware store wood rasp or a file or whatever you want to call this. And I've smoothened one side completely, right? So this side here is like basically a mirror polish. And you'll see why that's important in a bit. And then I have a regular steel file just to clean up those marks. And this doesn't have any polishing done on either side. And you'll see why that's important as well. Now, what are we doing? So this is my own invention kitchen knife. This is a design that I've invented myself. So it's a single bevel kitchen knife. It's basically a Yakut style utility chef's knife. This is the first prototype, which was the 68th of a series that I made a long time ago. But it was the first one of its kind, and I kept it for myself, and I use it every day. And I've sold maybe 10 of these. They're not cheap, they're quite expensive, but it's a hell of an amount of work to do. So, and you'll see. Another thing, and I won't show in this video, is I machine a plug at the back here. So you can see what I've done there is I have an offset black plug inside the red one. And that's to further strengthen the bond between the two laminations. Again, this is the same wood that we're using here. So I'm putting in the ring now, and then at the back we have another like a machined component basically that'll fit right into the back and keep everything together. Now the neat thing here is that it doesn't have to be flush. I've done it so that it's like it balls out a little bit, but I won't do that here. That's not what the customer asked for. I'm working on some custom knives, but yeah, if you're interested in one of these, get in touch with me on Instagram. My website only has the scalpels for sale, but yeah, this is 115 CRV3, so some pretty high carbon steel stuff. Very high skill work on that particular knife. Now you'll see that after I laminated those two pieces of wood, I turned it so that it's perfectly round. So that's one of the benefits of using a metal lathe, is that it cuts down a lot of the braces that you need to use. It's just overall, this type of metal lathe is the most underappreciated handle making tool in the knife making world. You'll see when I start drilling a hole through here why, but I might not do that here. Today I just want to show basic how to put one of the methods of putting a ring on the front. And if you look at my knives carefully, I do this with pretty much every single knife design, and this is it's because it just adds so much strength. It prevents the tangs from splitting through. It aids with aging. And then of course there's another thing too that not too many people are aware of. You shouldn't wear rings next to a lathe, by the way, is that the front grain of wood here causes calluses. So a lot of chefs that work for really, really long years, 10, 20 years, if they have just a pure front wood, pure basic, just full wood construction handle, they'll get some calluses developing on the whole of the inside here. So having a steel ring there is like having an integral bolster. It's just much higher quality work than integral bolsters. Integral bolsters are not very they're sort of, metallurgically speaking, it's sort of a bit of a nightmare in many ways, but they do look nice on kitchen knives, they do feel nice on handles, but I'm just not a fan of integral bolsters, and I think you'll see over the years as I make more videos about my knife making why integral bolsters are really just not my thing. I mean, I'm not bashing them or anything. I've made lots of integral bolster kitchen knives, but I think this is just a more professional approach of doing it. So, and you might actually, this is not uncommon either. Putting a ring at the front of your wooden handle is something that has been pretty much standard practice for thousands of years. And it's only just recently in the last maybe 50 years become sort of forgotten about. So we're not doing anything new here. Yeah, it's probably new on this machine. It's not something people do because it's an oval. But anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the carbide tooltip here. I'm going to set it to the depth. I'm going to actually do one pass to the right length. And I don't want to go, it's very important that you don't go all the way flush here, the depth that you're going. You want to have like a 0.5 millimeter over the top with your steel ring. Now this has been machined. I cut this and I made both sides. I machined both sides. So this is, you know, both of the front and the rear are parallel and they're smooth finished and machined. And then I just crimped it in a high-end vise to get like a consistent thing. And also, if you look carefully, both sides are chamfered. And I do leave the weld mark. You see there's a weld seam on the inside. I do leave that in there because if anything happens and I need to pull the ring off during construction, it'll give me, it'll show me where and how it was aligned properly. So I'm gonna do one basic pass and it's gonna give me the depth of where I want to go. And remember, we don't want to go the full length of the steel ring. We just want to go slightly less than that. So I just made the first pass, and this is just to mark how far we want to go. And again, it's like 0.5 millimeter sticking out, because when we hammer this wood, when we hammer it down into this and force it in place, we don't want the wood, we want the steel, we don't want the wood to stop going all the way through. We want a perfect fit on one side. And so if you go too deep for the steel ring, you won't be able to hammer it in place. You won't be able to put the two pieces together perfectly. So now, so you saw I marked with a pen at the front where the ring is gonna go, and I'm gonna just mark. So what we're doing now is on this piece, I think this lamp is busted, where I'm gonna shave off from the circumference to the top and the bottom. So I'm just machining the height here in place so that, you'll see. So actually, you know, I'm just gonna take it out of the vise so that you can see what I mean, where I'm setting the tool to. So I'm setting this tool to here and there. So I'm removing all the unnecessary material up until the highest points of where the steel ring is gonna go. Simple as that. And that's just, you don't have to do it that way. You can immediately, right now, if you wanted to, you take the file that has the polished side and work your way down from here already. Simple as that. But you don't get, it's not the way I do it. You can do it that way, and I've done it that way, and sometimes you have to do it that way. But right now, we don't have to do it that way. We can do it this way, and I'll show you the reason why I like to do it this way in a second. So I'm gonna set the tool to the high mark. Very important. Now, there isn't a lot of material to remove. That's why I can just do this in like one pass, basically. I'll let it get up to speed. If it's too much material in one go, you can always go back after you've marked your depth and just remove. Simple as that. Now we don't need this tool anymore. I'm going to show you guys again what it looks like. And as you can see, I've removed all the unnecessary material from top and bottom. All right, it's actually all the way around, but we've closed that gap as much as possible to get to the point where the spine and the belly of the ring already are in the correct dimensional area. So now what we do is we take the rasp with the polished end and we just remove the excess material from both sides. So here and there. Simple as that. And it won't be clean. This is what this is for. That's for cleaning up afterwards. And it's nice to have a little scalpel blade around too. I'll show you why in a bit, but this has to be pretty tight, but if you do too tight, it'll crush your wood, you see. And this is not, I used to use stabilized wood a lot more. Stabilized wood is super nice for machining, but the problem with stabilized wood is that it's very heavy, and it's just not what people used to like it when it became kind of trendy in their handles, but nowadays, at least with my customers, a lot of them say that they would just prefer the raw wood. Which kind of sucks for me because the raw wood is much more difficult, I think, personally, to work with than stabilized. So, again, it doesn't take too many. I'm just going to work my way down from there. And you see, so why I like to remove that excess material before using the rasp is that this ledge that I created with the lathe is now the limiter. Right, it's allowing the rasp to be flat and straight. It's giving me, I don't need to think so much about how deep I'm going with that. So very, very easy. This is a bit kind of dangerous here, this one. Oh well. I wish my lamp was plugged in, but it's a bit messy right now. There's been a lot of things going on, so I'm just gonna have to do it Now again, the thing here is you don't want to overdo it because you can't add material, you can't add wood, so... And I'm just doing one side at a time. Now, it's okay for the very front to be slightly smaller than this hole because you're going to force this over it anyway. The steel does have a tendency to, stretch a little bit when you force it on. And it's very important not to drill your tang hole or your dowel hole until this is done. Because otherwise you might get some splits and you might crumble everything in place. So it's important to do it like this first. So I'm just working my way down. And I do have a taper. I am sort of tapering it. Because you don't want the back here to be smaller than the front end here. And when you're forcing this one on later, it does remove any excess stuff. This is just a bit in the way here. So again, I like wood rasps. They really do remove wood very, very quickly. So now I go kind of slightly around, very lightly, almost no pressure, just to kind of even things out. Again, it's not that big of a deal that the front is smaller. think now we're pretty close. I'm just gonna do the very light material removal now because we want everything to be sort of flat and straight. Now I can go over to the smooth one. And the goal here is to just, there's going to be, because this file is the way it is, there isn't, I need to get a better tool. I need to update this tool so it doesn't do this, but I do get sort of a rounded edge here that's in contact with where the machine cut the corner. So with this, I can clean that up so you can see, but you have to be very careful with this because if you're at an angle like this, you're gonna start creating inconsistencies in the mating surface for where the ring touches the wood. But you can, if you have a piece of birch skin, you can easily cut a hole in a birch skin, put it over, and then you can mash the two together. Yeah. This is like a, because I'm doing it on video, it takes a lot longer than when I do it in person, like without the video stuff on and without explaining everything that I'm doing. But so right now you can see I'm also smoothing up everything. So the steel files are good for smoothing things out, you know. And we're pretty much ready now. All right, I think that's it. I'm gonna take it out of there. Simple as that. And now I should have actually done more. I need to remove more material, but you see now we're pretty close. And this will just fit right on like that. But I need to remove more material actually. So one trick you can do here, of course, is you get a trusty old blade and you just cut off excess like that. But here, it's very clear to me that I need to actually sort of cut more off. It's better, you know, to kind of underdo it a little bit, because if you overdo it, then there's almost no point in having the ring there to begin with, because the wood underneath is smaller than the ring. So the ring isn't stopping the wood from splitting. The wood will split anyway. So, the mechanical fit is so important with all knife handles. You gotta think about how would you make handles without glue? You know, that's the key thing, like what, and then just add the glue to make things stronger, you know. But the way I do handles, I always do it so that not a single drop of glue is necessary to create the thing, to begin with. But the glue is there anyway to make the bonds just so much stronger. So I'm gonna move over to the other side of the workshop. Actually, I don't think I need to do that. I think I can just hammer it in place here so we can see how it goes. I want to kind of do this all in one take rather than do little random sections. So I'm just I think we're close. Yeah. I'm gonna actually put it back. I did it slightly underdid it there on this side. So the reason it's dangerous to have teeth here is because if it comes in contact with that ledge there, you're gonna start morphing it and you're not gonna get a perfect fit. So you gotta be careful with that. Because if you go at an angle like this, you already kind of screw it all up. And a lot of guys, they make the mistake of thinking that it's just a solid piece of metal at the front. I think you'll see some kitchen knife makers, I don't know if it's right for me to name anybody, but a lot of guys, they do the dowel construction, and instead of putting the ring over the front of the wood to stop it from splitting, they put a block of metal, no joke, you know, some huge piece of metal right at the front through their dowel method. This is actually black stabilized antler, by the way, but not steel. But they put that, and then and then it's like, well, it's no different than having an integral bolster anyway, and you have all that added extra weight. That there's a huge amount of metal. Often integral bolsters, they have as much metal as the entire knife itself, the entire blade. So it adds a lot of weight. So when I'm making knives, kitchen knives especially, I like to keep them as lightweight as possible, which is sort of why I've kind of moved away from stabilized woods a little bit. I will use stabilized woods on scales because you kind of have to. All right, I'm gonna go quickly grab the glue. Just some 30-minute, it doesn't matter. You can put, 24-hour epoxy on this because, again, the nice thing with doing handles in such a way where everything is mechanically fit together is that you don't need any clamps to keep it in place, So, just gonna use some cut off Kydex here. Just gonna roll it around, mix it all up together. One of the nice things with the lathe, of course, is that, I haven't used any sandpaper yet. I haven't used any, none of the belt grinder materials, nothing. So far it's all just pretty much just tools, working on tools. So now, I forgot my hammer. Grab another one. So I should probably not hammer anything on the lathe, but whatever. See, I forgot what orientation it was on, which side is the bottom, but I think it was like this. All right, so fits already right on. Voila. That's a really beautiful fit. Try to remove some of that glue. It's basically a perfect fit. And now you see why it's important. Let me just wipe this epoxy on my ass. Now you see why it's super, super duper important, this ledge, because it allows you to force the wood as deep as possible without blocking itself from going all the way in, and thus getting a super nice, clean fit. So this is the method I use for that, and I don't just use it on laminated wood, I also use it on regular pieces of wood, just because it's so strong, and you get that steel at the front. I often use stainless steel tubes, but with some of these it doesn't really matter because your hands are going to be there anyway all the time. But yeah, there it is, really. I'll make more videos of multiple methods of doing this. Sometimes all you need to do is like just carve with a knife. You can have it so that the wood is actually smaller than the diameter of the ring. So like, let's just use a bigger, for example, like you can carve it so that it fits so that the ring is, this is like yeah, this is an okay example. This is a decent example. I also put rings on the front of antlers. Yeah. So you can have it like a katana handle where the material, the wood or whatever it is, at the front actually fits itself under the ring, and the ring is bigger than the entire thing. And that's a really good way to prevent cracking for sure. But then how different is this from the eye of an axe head? If you've ever shafted a handle onto an axe head, this kind of work should be pretty familiar to you, pretty similar. And axe handles don't really split, So it's the same principle. You're keeping all the wood together. You're making sure nothing splits apart. And in this particular case, you're also, because you got to remember, if you're working in the kitchen, that wood is expanding and contracting and expanding and contracting all the time. And so having like a steel ring at the front, that really protects long term. And you'll see, I'll show sometime all the different antique knives and swords or whatever that I have laying around that have rings at the front, and they still have splits down the handle where the metal pins are, but the handle still works. It's not broken, right? Because the ring keeps the whole handle together. So yeah. So a lot of benefits to using the ring at the front. As you can see, it's also pretty simple to do on a metal lathe. I mean, nearly all the work that I do on custom kitchen knife handles is done on the lathe. But there isn't really any more to it than that. I don't think there's really, this was one method of doing it. This is the most advanced method of doing it from my end. But I do have like bushcraft methods of doing it. I do have, I think it's roughly 10. I haven't counted. Oh yeah, well, there is also, of course, the method where you literally just machine down into a circle that's the same diameter as the circle like this. Like Takeda hunting knives have that, or chisels have that. A lot of gardening tools have that. It's extremely standard practice. Like, we're not talking about a new invention here. We're talking about how it's been done for thousands of years. Thousands of years. It's been done like this, but they didn't have metal lathe like this. They did have different types of turning tools, and and often instead of having like a fully closed ring like this, what they had was they had a band of metal that goes around the front. You'll see this on a lot of kukris, or even kukris kind of have this as well. They have a cap at the front that's very thin, but it's not. What I've seen from my experience is that those are not thick enough metal to actually protect the wood from splitting. So I've seen a lot of split kukri handles, but still, there's that way of doing it where you literally just lathe a round circle and then stick this on there, stuff like that. So it's there we go. Now, the nice thing about this way of doing it is that you see I didn't crush it in a vise or anything. So, and because this ring has been lathed on the front, it's got a perfectly flat surface here, right? It's very, very, very flat. And because of that, it's very nice for hammering down on the top here. It's very nice. And then of course, if you want to, let's see if I have them here. Well, whatever. Let's just use one of these shooting metals from 1987. That's not me, I'm a bit younger than that. If you have a washer, like a bolster, right? And you want to cover the front of your wood, look how perfect that fit is already. And zero hand labor, zero. I mean, I can literally just put a bolster here from the store that's washed up a little bit, like slightly flattened. I mean, already this is a perfect fit, And that's just because of the lathe, the nature of the lathe. And I didn't have to do any sandpapering, no elbow grease, just brain power. So here's actually, before we leave, this is one of the first or earliest, very, very early sort of examples of what I'm talking about when it comes to knife work. So this was done, I knocked the handle off because the handle wasn't very nice. But you can see that no matter what I tried to do to remove the handle, you can see the belly of the tang is in contact with the belly of the ring, and the spine of the knife is in contact with the spine inside of the ring on there. So you see how the wood just doesn't want to leave? It doesn't want to get out of there. You see? It's stuck in there. So, the amount of force, just smashing the handle off, and what's remaining is the front. So you could, it's hard for me to explain what I'm trying to say here. I'm kind of like mumbling up on my words, but just the visual example here of what I'm talking about, it goes to show that the ring is really that the weakest thing on this particular construction was actually the metal pins in the wood. So I've stopped doing that too. I just do a through tang and I peen it from the back. What I've noticed from my experience is that metal pins in wooden handles cause splits. They will eventually split your handle, and you see this on antique knives. You see it everywhere. You see it a lot. That metal pins like this, they tend to be the cause of splitting in handles. I don't know what happened to this handle, why it had to be removed. I just keep this around to show. I should probably dull the blade because it's a little sharp in some places. Yeah, this is just to show that even like a pretty basic rough ring at the front of your kukri will make a huge difference. It'll be the toughest part of your handle, and it'll keep everything together. I remember hammering this handle off. I put it on and I smacked it like that. So the next step, if I wanted to remove this ring, is I just put it in a vise and hammer here, and then it'll come through. But I like to keep this like this just to show as an example of how effective those rings are and how necessary they are if you want to produce a long-lasting blade. And you'll see on my Instagram, for years I've been doing this. I've even done it so that I have like a guard, a metal guard in the front, then the ring, and I'll weld the ring to the back of the guard so it looks like a homogeneous piece. That's super badass way to do it. But yeah, not much more to it than that, guys. It didn't take long, 20 minutes or so, It's kind of like no excuse, really. And I only showed you this way of doing it, and then later on I'll show you some other ways of doing it. But yeah, have a good one, guys. See you later.